At the beginning of this year, Tesla finally refreshed the Model 3 in the United States. It brought a lot of big changes, but it took them a number of months to finally start selling the performance Model 3 again. That's because this time around, Tesla made a number of changes to the Model 3 performance that distinguishes it from the other trims both inside and out. In the past, from the outside, the only real way to tell a Model 3 performance apart from another trim was the wheels, spoiler, and badge. For 2024 and on, though, Tesla has made some big changes that really cement this car's position as an incredibly versatile, quick performance vehicle. Just recently, I upgraded to the 2024 Performance Model 3, so after a few weeks of daily driving, I'm going to give you a full review of this car. So let's get into it, and a special thanks to Rhino Films and Detailing for sponsoring a portion of this video. To start off with, let's detail everything that's new in the new Model 3, and specifically the performance model. Inside, Tesla made a ton of big changes to the Model 3 that really update this car and upgrade this car. The materials inside are much improved from previous years, and there are a ton of great features that you really notice on a day-to-day basis. For one, they added ventilated seats, which is incredibly helpful in warm climates. These are great, and you can notice a difference when you have them on versus off, but I will say they aren't very strong. There are times when you are unsure if it's even doing anything, but then you notice it when it's been off for a while and then you turn it back on. Then Tesla updated the materials all around the car, which contribute to the new look, taking a lot from the Model S and X refresh. When you look up, the pillars, visors, and mirrors are largely the same, and this feels very similar to previous years, but everything else is a big change. The door panels, the dashboard, and the center console all have been upgraded, and one nice touch is the surround RGB light bar. It may seem like a small detail, but it really adds to the look of this car, and you can choose whatever color you want. The one change I'll comment on here in a bit is the removal of stocks. With all of Tesla's cars, save the yet-to-be-refreshed Model Y, Tesla has completely gotten rid of the drive stock and blinker stock. Instead, you shift on screen and use buttons for blinkers, lights, windshield wipers, and more that are on the steering wheel. Your main controls are still done on the center 15-inch touchscreen that now has a slightly smaller bezel, and then in the rear, Tesla added a screen. This controls climate and allows rear passengers to control entertainment or have their own with their own Bluetooth feed. Overall, Tesla did an incredible job with this refresh because it doesn't just feel different, it feels better. The quality of the Model 3's interior is a huge step up, and it's especially noticeable in ride quality and cabin isolation. This car is incredibly quiet on the road, and the ride is very, very smooth. For the Performance Model 3, there are two main changes inside. The dashboard has a carbon fiber trim instead of a cloth one, and then there are upgraded performance seats. One thing this shares with the all-wheel drive model is an incredible sound system that improves over previous years. This has 17 speakers, dual subwoofers, and dual amplifiers, and as a picky music listener, it is one of the best sound systems I've heard in a car. I absolutely love listening to music in this car, and that is one of the upgrades from the rear-wheel drive Model 3 that is extremely noticeable. For that sound system, you can stream music on screen or via Bluetooth, but one thing you can also do is offline download hi-fi files through Tidal directly on screen. If you enjoy listening to a great stereo, I highly recommend giving this a try in the latest Tesla sound systems like this one. You notice a quality improvement when streaming on Tidal versus Spotify, but then absolutely hear the hi-fi quality in this car, and it's one of the few sound systems I can say that about. Sometimes people don't quite think the system will be that great because there isn't a brand attached to it like Bose, but I'm a musician and a very picky listener, and I can confidently say this sound system is fantastic. It's clear enough to truly hear hi-fi music. With that said, if you're an enthusiast here, you'll likely want gapless playback on albums that flow track to track, and Tesla has never been good at this. In the past, certain services have had this, but it varies, and it's quite annoying when trying to listen to an album like Abbey Road in hi-fi on an incredible sound system, and there is a gap between tracks that should flow. I'm shocked they have not fixed this entirely yet, and hopefully they will soon. If you're watching this, Tesla, and need an example, listen to Abbey Road and see the frustration of listening to tracks 11 through 13 or 14 through 16. In my mind, this is basically a crime. It would be like having the highest capacity battery pack ever in an EV, but it can't DC fast charge. For the performance model exclusively, these seats are a pretty big change and are very comfortable. They feature enhanced bolstering for more support, and then of course have standard heating and cooling. I went with white interior as well, so they have a particularly great look with the ludicrous badge embedded within them. The seats on the other trims are very comfortable, but these really hug you and make you feel supported. Plus, I just think they look very cool. The other big upgrade for the performance model is an adaptive suspension. Tesla said that this system, quote, adjusts to driver and road inputs in real time to optimize ride and handling, while also improving ride comfort. There are 3 basic settings here: standard for comfort, sport for elevated control, and track for maximum control when in track mode V3. This makes the Model 3 performance incredible for what they call spirited driving, but also daily driving. If you're comparing apples to apples, I went from a 2024 rear-wheel drive Model 3 to this car, and I did notice a bit of a stiffer ride. That's intentional and going to occur naturally with larger wheels in a performance-focused car, but it's something to keep in mind if the smoothest ride possible is your goal. Tesla doesn't really mention a lowered ride height here, but if you compare specs, they do show it riding about 0.4 inches lower than other trims. Outside is where Tesla made their other changes, again taking somewhat from the Model S and really making me feel like this car is a more affordable Model S or a Model S Mini. The front and rear changed for all models, but then Tesla made a couple of changes here for the performance model exclusively. The front bumper is exclusive to the performance model and has this black lower lip. It is one of the sportiest looks I've seen them ship, and I'm a big fan of it. Around back, there is of course the ludicrous performance badge, and then this car also has an altered rear diffuser and a carbon fiber spoiler. Again, a very sporty look, and a couple of details that distinguish this from the 2 other trims that they sell of this car. I do think it's great that now, by just looking at the front of this Model 3, you can tell it's a performance model compared to another trim. That's something that Tesla didn't really do in the past. Lastly, here are the new performance wheels. These are their 20-inch forged warp wheels with summer tires, and Tesla says, quote, lightweight staggered wheels provide sharper turn-in response, better traction in corner exit, and are optimized for range and comfort. These are coupled with performance brakes. I personally love the look of this performance Model 3 and think Tesla did a fantastic job with it. It stands out a lot more than it used to, but it still remains a great daily driver. Then of course this car delivers upgraded specs. It has a top speed of 163 miles per hour, a range of 303 miles EPA, and a 2.9 second 0 to 60 with over 500 horsepower. That 0 to 60 is an improvement over previous years, and I do think that you can feel it. You can also feel that it maintains a lot of power over 60 miles per hour, which hasn't always been the case. This has been confirmed now by third parties, that it does get to 100 miles per hour or 150 miles per hour quicker than it used to. For the average customer, you likely aren't even driving that fast, but it's cool to see it quicker over 60. As for options, there are really only a couple for the Model 3. I chose Tesla's fairly new ultra red paint and white interior. From there, this is a pretty normal Model 3. It has 250 kilowatt supercharging, it comes standard with basic autopilot, it has folding mirrors, and is available in Tesla's 5 colors. It has a reasonably sized front trunk that is manually operated, and then it has a powered trunk. It seats 5, and I'd say that it seats 4 adults very comfortably. You can fit 5, but with the upgraded rear seats in the 2024 refresh, 4 truly sit comfortably. This didn't used to be the case for the rear seats. They weren't that comfortable. Within that trunk is a lot of space, a very sizable under-storage compartment, and then 2 side cubbies. This also used to only have 1. If you need to fit larger cargo, the rear seats fold down, so you can use it as a pass-through from the trunk, but you're of course going to be height limited because it's a trunk itself and not a hatchback. That's the majority of this car. There are other things like cup holders in the rear, USB-C ports, the center console, wireless phone charging, and more, but most of that is standard Model 3 stuff, which is what really makes this a great car. Yes, it's performance focused in many ways and absolutely delivers in that department, but if you also want to sit back and relax on a road trip, it's fully capable of everything that Tesla delivers, from basic autopilot to the latest full self-driving technology. I've been driving this with FSD version 12.5 lately, and within the last week, it has completed around 5 1.5-hour drives for me. Of course, I'm monitoring, and on each of those drives, I found myself taking over for short things maybe 1 or 2 times, but in general, it takes a ton of the stress off of driving. It really makes this kind of the ultimate driving machine. I'm a drummer, so I'm utilizing the trunk space of the Model 3, and then riding with my bass drum in the back seat. On long drives through traffic, it's incredibly comfortable and quiet inside, and then it drives for me. I get to my destination, let's say a recording studio, and I feel less taxed. I also was listening to music on an incredible sound system the whole way there. Then, when I do want to drive, this car has incredible control and power available to you at an instant. Before we go any further, I'd like to thank Rhino Films and Detailing for sponsoring this video. If you're wondering how this Model 3 looks so great within this review, it's thanks to the work that they did on this car. Located in Huntington Beach, California, Rhino provides tint, paint protection film, ceramic coating, and more. For my new performance Model 3, they did full PPF, along with window tinting, and they are particularly great with Teslas. For window tint, you can see that they did a great job, but what I love about their products is that they don't just dim the interior, they block infrared radiation and reject heat to help keep your car cool. I find this especially useful with the glass roof in the Model 3 during the summer. It allows me to keep the roof as is without a shade over it, but not worry about getting too hot. PPF stands for Paint Protection Film, and this is a transparent film that protects your paint from road debris, scratches, and wear. Its top coat also self-heals, resisting scratches and cracks, and it keeps your car looking brand new while being easier to clean. They offer a wide variety of films here, including colored PPF, and they are an authorized Expel installer. I'm very happy with the work they did on my Model 3, and they're conveniently located in Orange County. To check out Rhino for yourself, click the link in the description below and mention code RyanModel3 to receive a 10% discount. That's a really great deal, so check it out. For many performance vehicles delivering specs like this, you can't really have it both ways. Maybe it's a stiff ride or you have incredible control, but then that's what it is all the time. Here, Tesla has really dialed in an incredible performance vehicle that simultaneously is the ideal daily driver. Of course, though, all of these upgrades come at a cost. For one, the Performance Model 3 is $7,500 more expensive than Tesla's all-wheel drive long-range model. On top of that, you actually get less range. The EPA quotes the long-range all-wheel drive Model 3 at 341 miles, whereas the Performance model delivers 303 miles. So you're looking at less efficiency, and if aiming for maximum range, about 38 miles less. If you went with long-range rear-wheel drive as well, you'd get 363 miles of range, and it would be about $12,500 less. With that said, recent third-party testing has shown these ranges to be much more realistic than the past. For example, Edmunds achieved a 307-mile range in their testing with the Performance Model 3. So if you were automatically looking at a 300-mile range and subtracting a bunch, that doesn't seem to be the case across the board like it used to be with Tesla vehicles. Now, of course, with any Tesla comes issues, right? Fit and finish, build quality, recalls, etc. Well, first off, things have changed in this department for Tesla to the point where I wish we could almost reset. Is everything absolutely perfect 100% of the time? No, but having seen a lot of recent Tesla vehicles and owning the latest ones, I can confidently say that their cars have a great build. You really notice it in this new Model 3, and any issues I've experienced are very small. With that said, there are a couple small things I've experienced here. The main thing is that my center armrest is creaky. If you lean on it at all, as one does, it makes this sound. That's an unfortunate sound for any car. Every once in a while, I think I hear some sort of rattle coming from the passenger side, but this is actually very infrequent, and I haven't noticed it in the past couple of weeks. Then, just after a week of ownership, my windshield cracked. I simply walked outside and noticed this in my rearview mirror. For some owners, this has been reported to be a problem, a stress crack on a Model 3 with no point of impact, and that seemed to be what happened to me. I had to get this fixed at Tesla service, and while they did cover it under warranty, they did say they ended up seeing a point of impact when removing the glass, so something like a rock did hit it and crack it. I'm not fully sure what happened here, but Tesla service was super quick here. The windshield was replaced in a few hours, and then I took it back to the tint shop to get redone. One issue I've yet to experience but have heard reports of is motor leakage after intense tracking in this car. That's a bigger issue if it does happen and is something I will be on the lookout for. Other than that, everything has been great so far, and I have nothing to complain about in this incredibly quick car. It's a very quiet, well put together car, and this is backed up by data from people like Car and Driver. They found the new Model 3 to average about 67 decibels at a 70 mile per hour cruise, and it used to be about 70 decibels in this car. That doesn't sound like a ton, but it is, since decibels are logarithmic, meaning the jump down from 70 to 67 is the difference between a Ram 1500 TRX and Mercedes-Benz E-Class. Now, something that isn't exclusive to the Performance Model 3 is software, and Tesla does this better than any automaker. What I love about this car is that throughout ownership, I receive software updates that deliver new features, and one of those is the recent addition of the hands-free trunk. With my phone in my pocket, I walk over to the trunk, stand there, it beeps 3 times, and then opens automatically. This is something they didn't used to have, but the latest hardware enables it. It's very handy when you have things in your hands to put in the trunk, and it's a fairly standard feature on other cars in this price point. Things that aren't standard for other cars, though, are surround view cameras that record for their security system and live stream to your phone. They also record while you're driving for dash cam. Synced profiles that save your logins to services like Tidal, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Netflix, Spotify, and much more, all on the built-in screen. Basic autopilot included by default, with the option to subscribe to or purchase full self-driving. Climate controls from the app, iOS shortcuts for various commands, and automatic routing to superchargers as needed. I'm never concerned about charging because charging at home is a breeze, and Tesla's supercharger network is plentiful and reliable. What about those new controls, though? Tesla got rid of stocks to further clean up the look of the interior here, and in practice this means that you are regularly using turn signal buttons with your left thumb and regularly shifting by swiping on screen. For some this sounds awful, but in my experience I'm entirely used to it. The vast majority of the time I'm using auto shift out of park. It guesses which direction I want to go, tells me what it will shift into on screen, and then I simply tap the brake to shift. When shifting from there though, let's say in a 3-point turn, you will be swiping on screen. It's not as ideal as a shifter, but I've grown used to it and don't mind it. As for blinker buttons, the majority of the time I actually do prefer these. I don't have to move my hand at all, I simply reach over with my thumb and signal. It makes signaling on the freeway very simple, but then comes quick turns. The big difference between a stock and these buttons is that your input device moves with the wheel. So if I'm signaling right, in the middle of that turn, but quickly need to signal left, or vice versa, finding the blinker buttons is not easy. They are further away, upside down, or in an awkward position, and this makes situations like this, or a roundabout, very difficult to properly signal in. My fear here is that it means people just won't signal in these situations. So there is a give and take there. The majority of the time, auto shift out of park works great for me, essentially eliminating the need to shift, and I maybe swipe on screen once during a drive to go into reverse for parking. Then it's very easy to drive around and signal without moving my arm, but on tight turns or roundabouts, the buttons do get pretty awkward. Ultimately, I think Tesla went this route to clean up the dash, but also because they expect FSD, full self-driving, to take over in the future. Either way, this will always bother certain customers, so there are aftermarket solutions to add these back in if you prefer. So is the performance worth the upgrade? Well, it really depends on your needs. I'd say that for the average customer, a rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive long-range Model 3 will fit the bill. It delivers the majority of what the performance Model 3 delivers. It actually improves its range by as much as 60 miles and rides smoother. For average customers, these are the most important things to consider when buying a car, and you'll get great comfort, range, charging, and everything with this car. You'll also still get great acceleration, instant torque, and a 0 to 60 in 4.9 or 4.2 seconds by going with a cheaper trim. It's still plenty to have fun with or accelerate quickly when necessary. If you really like the way the performance model looks though, the upgraded front and rear, the performance seats, are planning to track this car, really want stomach-dropping acceleration, or somewhat want to drive a Plaid Mini, then this is the car for you. It offers so much at such a great price, and it is put together so well. In car and drivers testing, they saw the Model 3 performance delivering a 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds and a quarter mile in 11 seconds at 125 miles per hour. You can really feel it in this car, and it's a huge improvement over previous years, especially at high speeds. Quote, the new all-wheel drive Model 3 Performance raced to 100 miles per hour in 6.8 seconds, which is 1.4 ticks sooner than its predecessor. Its lead only grew from there, hitting 130 miles per hour, 3.9 seconds quicker, with a run of 12.3 seconds. Finally, the race to 150 miles per hour took 18.3 ticks in the new Model 3 Performance, an incredible 8.7 seconds sooner than its 2019 equivalent. Now, of course, 0 to 60 in times like these are not everything, but when comparing to cars that this is competing with, it's very impressive. Oftentimes you're looking in the $80,000 range, and with the tax credit here, you're sub $50,000. If aiming to get that 2.9 seconds from the competition as well, costs tend to go up from there. Quote, its test numbers put it in the company of EVs that cost about twice as much. Not to mention, it's now just as quick as its gas-powered measuring stick, the BMW M3. A 2023 M3 Competition X-Drive and a 24 Model 3 Performance posted the same 60 and 130 miles per hour runs, as well as identical quarter-mile times. Only the Beamer has a gas tank and costs about $30,000 more than the Tesla. I've yet to take this car to the track, but it does have version 3 of track mode there, which is very customizable. And then anytime I really push this car, it's unbelievable, and the instant torque available at all times and the stomach-dropping acceleration almost doesn't make sense. It's so much fun and truly stacks up against the competition. I owned a Plaid Model S previously, so I'm pretty familiar with hilariously unbelievable performance that is nearly silent, and this definitely delivers there. I'd go as far as to say it's like a Plaid Mini, but with the big advantage being that it's $35,000 less and can be $7,500 less than that if you qualify for the tax credit. For those who want something like a Plaid but don't really want the Model S, this car definitely delivers. I fall right into this category, so I love it. I also think that while taking some design from the Model S, it actually takes quite a bit from the unreleased Roadster. The front end in particular is very reminiscent, so it stands out a lot. Driving around in any sort of open area will quickly show you that this car has far more power than you're likely to ever use. It's fun to have at a whim and be able to truly launch if you want to, or need to for any particular reason. In my opinion, this is actually one of the best cars Tesla sells at the moment. For the average person, the other trims of this Model 3 will be fantastic, and it delivers the majority of the comfort that I've talked about today. Then Tesla took it to the next level with the performance model. They didn't go crazy and make this a plaid killer, but they did put it right in line with cars like the M3. Throughout this video, I've been pretty positive, but there are a few things about this car I would improve. For one, the manual front trunk is something I'd love them to make powered. I would use it far more. The cooling seats should be more powerful. The rear center screen is cool, but it's quite small and at a very low angle for somebody to watch while driving. Search for music still needs some work on screen, and it can be frustrating. The majority of the time, voice commands don't seem to work right for me, but this could be getting an update soon. Full self-driving sometimes says the cameras are blocked, even when I just cleaned the car. The wireless phone charger exists, but doesn't really do a great job. My phone typically overheats and stops charging when on this pad, and then I often find that I'll arrive somewhere with nearly the same phone battery I had when I started my drive. So it doesn't do much. Sometimes when streaming music, it randomly pops at the beginning of a track. Not super loud, but annoying. Then of course the gapless playback issue I talked about earlier. Lastly, I still wish this had a more traditional 360 surround view parking system. Tesla does have their 3D visualization on screen that is pretty good, but more could be nice in addition to a front bumper camera. I do expect them to add this camera in the future. Overall, the Model 3 performance is a really great upgrade, both from previous years and from other trims of the 2024 Model 3. If you want performance, this has it, and it really does feel like a Plaid Mini to me in some ways that also took some design from the Roadster. Arguably, it suffers in a couple very small ways because of Tesla's focus on self-driving and eliminating controls, but in my experience, you do get used to it quick and don't mind long term. The sound system is one of the best in a car its size, ride quality is great, the cabin is extremely quiet, and it delivers reliable range, great storage, and much more. This is a great car from Tesla, and I can't wait to drive it for the next few years. That's all for this one, so in the meantime, if you want to see my full review of the rear-wheel drive version of this Model 3, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.